On July 15, 2025, Canada stunned North America by imposing a steep toll on all vehicles using the Alaska Highway, citing urgent infrastructure needs and sovereignty. The highway, once a symbol of unity, instantly became a choke point. Chaos erupted. Trucks carrying essential goods to Alaska were halted, drivers faced thousands in unexpected fees, and families' plans were upended. The toll was more than a fee, it was a declaration. Ottawa's unilateral move ignited a diplomatic firestorm, the likes of which hadn't been seen in a century. The U.S. responded with disbelief, then anger, calling the toll a violation of long-standing agreements and a betrayal of the special relationship. The Canadian Prime Minister stood firm, insisting Canada could no longer shoulder the burden of maintaining the highway alone. Retaliatory U.S. tariffs on Canadian lumber and seafood soon followed, plunging both nations into a trade war. The crisis exposed deep tensions over sovereignty, economic interdependence, and security. The once seamless border now felt like a hard, unforgiving line. Alaskan businesses saw supply chains severed overnight. Costs for groceries and materials soared. In the Yukon and northern British Columbia, communities dependent on American travelers watched their livelihoods vanish. Hotels emptied, cafes fell silent. The toll wasn't just policy, it was a devastating blow, turning neighbors into strangers, separated by a paywall. The Alaska Highway, once a testament to cooperation, now symbolized a growing divide. For thousands, the consequences were immediate and severe. To grasp the crisis, we must revisit World War II. After Pearl Harbor, Alaska's vulnerability demanded a secure land route. Thus, the Alaska Highway was born. In a remarkable act of wartime cooperation, the U.S. and Canada built a 500-mile road through harsh wilderness in under 9 months. Over 10,000 U.S. Army soldiers, including African-American regiments, braved brutal conditions to carve the path. Canada provided the land. The U.S. supplied labor and funding, promising to hand over the Canadian section after the war. The highway's completion in 1942 was a triumph of joint effort and a symbol of alliance. After the war, the road became a public highway, opening the north to development and tourism. For decades, it stood as proof of what the two nations could achieve together. The highway became a cultural icon, the essential link for people and goods, and a corridor of friendship. Free, open transit was an unspoken promise. That's why Canada's sudden toll feels like a painful break from the past. The shared sacrifice that built the highway is now overshadowed by division. The dispute is tangled in a web of treaties and legal ambiguities. While no treaty explicitly forbids tolls, the U.S. argues Canada's move violates the spirit of foundational pacts like the 1909 Boundary Waters Treaty, which set precedents for free cross-border transit. The 1942 Highway Agreement, built on shared defense, implied perpetual, unhindered access for American traffic. Canada counters that, as sovereign owner, it can manage the road, including charging tolls. The legal arguments hinge on interpretation. The U.S. sees a breach of partnership. Canada sees a rightful assertion of authority. The lack of a clear modern treaty has left a vacuum now filled with political rhetoric and retaliation. The U.S. threatens international arbitration. Canada insists it's a domestic matter. The legal frameworks meant to prevent such conflicts have proven inadequate, exposing a critical flaw in the U.S.-Canada relationship. Canada frames the toll as a reluctant but necessary step, driven by soaring maintenance costs and a need to reassert sovereignty. Melting permafrost and extreme weather have made upkeep a $100 million annual burden, mostly for the benefit of American traffic. Ottawa argues it's unfair for Canadian taxpayers to subsidize a corridor serving another nation. The toll is a user pay system, common worldwide, and revenue will fund highway maintenance and climate adaptation. Beyond economics, the toll asserts that Canadian territory is not just a land bridge for U.S. convenience. For many Canadians, it's a long overdue statement of national interest. Canada insists this is a responsible, modern approach to infrastructure, asking primary users to help ensure the highway's future. The U.S. sees the toll as a shocking betrayal by its closest ally. The Alaska Highway isn't just any road, it's the only land link connecting Alaska to the rest of the U.S. Denying or taxing access is viewed as isolating 730,000 Americans. Washington rejects Canada's cost arguments, pointing to the economic benefits Canadian communities gain from American travelers and truckers. Studies show Americans spend hundreds of millions annually along the route, fueling local economies. The U.S. contends the toll is punitive, not necessary. At the heart of the dispute is reciprocity. The U.S. built the highway for shared defense, expecting perpetual access. Canada's unilateral move is seen as a dangerous precedent, threatening other cross-border agreements. The toll even applies to military movements, raising alarms at the Pentagon and elevating the issue to a matter of continental defense. For the U.S., this is more than an economic inconvenience, it's a strategic threat and a breach of trust. The alliance's foundation is shaken. The highway, once a symbol of partnership, now divides. The U.S. demands a reversal, warning of lasting consequences. The rift is deep and the stakes are high. The toll's impact is felt most by ordinary people. In Alaska, the cost of living has soared. Groceries, building materials, and shipping costs have all spiked. Small businesses face ruin. Families cancel long-planned trips, unable to afford the toll. A military family's move from Alaska to Texas, once an adventure, is now a financial crisis. On the Canadian side, towns like Watson Lake and Fort Nelson are reeling. Hotels sit empty, gas stations and restaurants close, and layoffs mount. U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods have devastated local industries, compounding the pain. The human connection the highway fostered is fraying. Generations saw themselves as part of a shared northern community. Now, resentment and division grow. Canadians feel punished for Ottawa's decision. Alaskans feel betrayed by former friends. The highway, once a bridge, is now a wall. The social fabric is unraveling. The crisis is personal, not just political. The Alaska highway dispute has escalated into a full-blown trade war, disrupting economies far beyond the north. Canada and the U.S. have imposed tit-for-tat tariffs, inflaming political tensions and fueling inflation. Integrated supply chains are breaking down, and cooperation on everything from environmental protection to law enforcement has stalled. Trust between agencies is eroding. Informal problem-solving has given way to formal, acrimonious exchanges. The divide is now cultural. Media on both sides stoke nationalism and hostility. Public opinion is hardening, making compromise politically risky. The perception of Canadians and Americans as family is fading, replaced by rivalry. The world is watching allies worry about Western unity, while rivals see opportunity. Russia and China are poised to exploit the rift, especially in the Arctic. The once solid North American bloc now appears fractured and vulnerable. The crisis has global implications. The cost of division is mounting. The partnership's future is in jeopardy. The highway conflict has far-reaching consequences for Arctic geopolitics. For decades, the U.S. and Canada presented a united front in the region, anchoring Western influence. Now, the rift creates a strategic vacuum. Russia, aggressively militarizing its Arctic, sees opportunity in North American discord. China, eager to expand its Polar Silk Road, benefits from a divided U.S. and Canada. The crisis strains NORAD and forces the U.S. to reconsider its northern defense posture. A greater U.S. military presence in Alaska and less reliance on Canada could further erode cooperation. The dispute forces a reassessment of North American security. If the U.S. and Canada can't resolve a road dispute, how can they face greater Arctic challenges? The continent's stability depends on trust and shared values. The toll has placed a heavy fee on that foundation. The long-term geopolitical cost may be far greater than either nation realizes. The Alaska highway toll crisis has brought the U.S. and Canada to a crossroads. What began as a funding dispute has become a diplomatic and economic conflict, shaking their historic partnership. The highway, once a symbol of unity, now marks a deep divide. Economic pain is real, and the social fabric is fraying. The conflict has created instability, offering rivals an opening. The path forward is uncertain. Resolution will require rebuilding trust and reaffirming shared principles. Both sides must seek compromise, respecting sovereignty and the highway's unique importance. The future of North American stability may depend on which road they choose.